So, hello to everybody. Welcome to this business meeting of the fret community, so to speak, the first business meeting we have. And I'm very glad that you will become and that you are here. And it's like this, that I first want to thank Anders and Thomas, yes, here, who made this infrastructure possible, made that we can be streamed, that we have a web page. Without them, this kind of infrastructure would have not been possible. And maybe for safety purposes, I want to ask whether anyone has something against the point that we have video streaming and recording. Because at the end, we promised we put this online, because there are various people in the world who are not in San Diego, but they would like to participate and listen. Is anyone against this, that we do this? Okay, thank you. I'm happy for that. And I want to keep it very short. Let's say we had various meetings in advance to find out how a community could work. And finally, at the MAF, again, here, quite close, 20 kilometers north, the community was announced at the MAF conference 2019 at UCSD. And now we have more than close to 200 members. And I think still some groups are missing. So I hope that we can reach 300 participants. And I also want to take the opportunity that the fact that you can see something, this is supported by PicoQuant. They sponsor the Beamer because the society doesn't provide that. So in principle, we were grateful for that. And based on this, I want to make it very short. In principle, the key of everything is after registration comes in the bylaws, elections. And elections means that we have a scientific advisory board which officially initiates the activities of the community. And it's interesting, the way it is organized is German habit. It's interesting, it's different from the society here. And so it's in the German societies, the young investigators and early stage researchers have a much stronger role. So they are part of the scientific advisory board. And we will have to discuss, this is here it is written how it is on the web page and it is initially planned, but maybe after seeing the interest to the elections, the number of candidates we have, we might reconsider that we adapt the numbers. There will be a discussion point later on, whether we change that. We have the power to do that. Just looking what you think about. And the main point is that my colleagues asked me to keep the rules as simple as possible. We have these 4 categories: early stage researcher, young investigators, brackets not tenured, industry, facilities, editors and others, and senior investigator. Each category you are a member in votes for itself. So there are no PhD votes for senior scientists and vice versa. There's no cross elections, so to speak. And the number of seats is initially 2 and 8 for the senior investigators. Maybe this is subject to change, to be discussed, seeing that especially the early investigators, early stage researcher are the fuel of this whole endeavor, and that most likely, and there are many candidates now out there in the list, they will be introduced by another person, and that maybe there are too little seats for them. and this maybe should be changed. The other rule is that you say each person has can get at maximum, each candidate can get at maximum 2 votes. And then when the colleagues asked me that the votes are such that we can accumulate votes and by that way differentiate between candidates. And the second rule is the number of votes is equal to the number of electable people. So at the moment, for the senior investigator, 8 candidates, you have 8 votes. You could either give 8 single points or 4 times 2. Or if you don't like it, there's only 1 person you want to elect, you give only 2 votes and the rest is discarded. It's possible. But you cannot do more than 8. And Anders set up a web page where this is automatically processed. And this is more or less all. And then after we have the election, the advisory board will meet, and everything else from that point on is triggered by this advisory board. And how it is organized, they do in between. If we feel, for example, that female scientists or other specialists in the field are underrepresented, the scientific advisory board can extend the round also in an internal election. So in principle, we vote for the starting committee and everything else will be handled by that group. So then I would like to hand over to the next person, Anders. Okay. Yes, and maybe I forgot at least to say elections start March 9th to 23rd of March. So in the time is 1 hour to midnight Central European time. Okay. Just 1 second so I can set this back up. Okay. Did we have it presented? Good. So I just want to briefly introduce the webpage that we have been building as a central hub for this community. So you can find it under fret.community. Most of you, I guess, already looked at it, but I can briefly walk through some of the things that are on the webpage. Okay, and then I guess I'll do it from over here. Or not. Okay, that works. Now it's working. Okay, good. So on the front page, we have a bit of general information, such as announcement of this meeting that we're in right now, some latest news and general information on the community. We have a dedicated page also for the news, where you can check up on the things that we have announced. At the moment, we use this mostly to promote meetings that we have organized, but for the future, we also envision that we could, for example, use it to highlight key publications or decisions that were made within the community. We have a page for the events that we have been hosting. You will hear more about this also in a second for Hugo. So events that have happened just briefly were a satellite meeting at the NAF conference last year. And then also a year ago, we met here to sort of initiate the community. And there also were these various thread conferences held in Göttingen in Germany over the past years. If you want to read the bylaws again, we have the draft of the bylaws online on the community webpage as well. And you can also comment below. Some of you have already done that. If you have some things that you don't agree with or things that you would like to tell us that you would like to have changed or discussed. Then elections will be also discussed in detail in a second.
Important thing here is the nominations are still possible. So if you want to run and be a part of the advisory board, that is still possible. And so we set up the community in September last year and just put together a few statistics of how the community has been growing over the time. This is when we started mailing out the community to more people. So we had a nice spike in January. We're now, I think, up to 193 last time I checked. So it's still actually growing. We're doing a pretty good job of coloring the map. It's a bit biased still towards Germany, but it's centered in Germany and the United States. We have Israel, which is good represented, but very tiny on the map, and a larger area countries. So I think we're getting there. And in terms of distribution of the members over careers, we actually have a majority of senior researchers, which I guess given the member count is a good sign. But also a wealthy amount of early stage researchers, not so many industry and facility managers, editors, so we're still trying to reach out to those people, and young investigators, sort of an intermediate thing that we're trying to fill out. And for the early stage researchers, we are composed mainly of PhD student postdocs, and we have a single undergraduate, so we also put this category in there. So shout out to this guy. And yeah, I have to click back in the. So in terms of member system, we try to provide something that's like a lightweight social network, I guess. So you can browse members and you can click on profiles, and the profile will give you information that people can put in, like generally where do people work. We also give the option to link your Twitter feed or LinkedIn account, all that stuff in terms of networking. And you have this box below where you can put any information you want, really, like your interests. I put a few publications in there, so just so you're aware of these options. In terms of providing resources for the community, we started putting together the software list. So basically providing a central list where people can look for software. For the use cases, it's searchable. It has a short description and a longer description, and it just collects all the links for these software packages. And if you have a software package that you would like to list, you can still also just register it and we will put it up. At the moment, it's mainly single molecule thread software packages, but we're also open to any package really. And related, we also set up on GitHub a repository where we try to collect these software packages in terms of code bases, in terms of joint development, just providing a central hub that people can go to if they want to look for software, if they want to develop software. And I guess as a sort of very far outlook, it would be nice to develop something of a library for whatever programming language and move towards a SciPy or Fluorescence, where all the different modules are together. And then in terms of future ideas, we do have a forum on the webpage already active, and a few ideas also from candidates for the advisory board. One idea was from BPS2020, sort of have an option to pose any question you might have. A stupid question, it's not supposed to be a stupid question, but something in an environment where anybody can ask any question they might have and then reach experts so they could answer that question. Also something maybe to discuss projects and collaborations on a larger scale. This was put forward by Jelle. And we're also thinking of putting more resources on there. We have the software list, but of course this can be extended. For example, for hardware, so microscope setups, initiatives here by Tim Kratz and Johannes Wohlbein, MyCube and open source microscopy platforms. We could also think about providing instructions for assembly of microscopes, the alignment of microscopes, all these things, acquisition software, not only analysis, but also for the acquisition. 3D printing is becoming more common for providing microscope parts, and also electronics. For example, Klaus has a hardware correlator. We can just plug in your APD signal and get nice correlation curves on the fly.
Besser, wenn du mit dem Mikrofon bist, ist du leise.
Okay. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to say about the website. And then we move on to elections. Past events, okay. 1 second.
It's a single slide and it won't take much because I know part of the importance of here is also getting to business aspects. But this provides an overview of what, how this community came to be, just basically the late aspect of that. Maybe we can move that. So in 2011 was the first FRET meeting held in Göttingen, and that in a way sparked a lot of the interest in the FRET community, hosted in Göttingen, fantastic meeting. The year after was a smaller conference held in Baden-Hof, and that really led to the discussions of the FRET challenge that was later published in 2018 in terms of really getting FRET as an accurate tool to get really distances on the angstrom resolution. So you can see how these community events really led to something practical as really the first joint publication from many different laboratories representing different regions of the world. So then you can see that it took several years to get to the second FRET meeting, the FRET 2.0, also held in Göttingen. And since then, basically, there was really more of the, well, we need to keep doing some sort of organization that not only occupies, I guess, only the German country, but that there's more representation across the planet, I would say. So with that, we took basically some of the insights gained by the satellite workshop held during the German Biophysical Society that hosted, I think, roughly, if I'm not mistaken, Klaus, more than 200 participants during, or close to 300 participants in the satellite workshop. They divided between beginners, intermediate, and advanced users for FRET. And that was really the last, you could say, the drop in the water to really try to use the same type of formatting. And that's when we started contacting the BPS and the biological fluorescence subgroup to be able to provide us the outlet and reach out to the biological fluorescence community. So we hosted that satellite workshop last year here in the BPS with the idea of having what is FRET in biophysics. We held a roundtable around, the estimate is about 60 people came, more or less about the same size as right now. And we started registering interest people. So people started signing up, providing their email address. That's how we started reaching or populating that FRET community. So then later on that year, we held, as was previously mentioned, here in San Diego, La Jolla, we did the satellite workshop and in the MAF, where we presented the first time the initial draft of the bylaws to the community, and we started getting feedback from the community on what those bylaws should be, how we can modify them, how we can to really represent the whole community and not just some few. So with that, we really launched the website, but it wasn't really reaching out because we were we wanted to get more participation. So we got more listings and more email addresses. That's when we really pushed the launch in January, and you saw that peak on the registration to the website. So we encourage you, everybody, to, if you haven't really registered, to register and be an active member of the community. And of course, today is really the first business meeting that we basically want to have that official presentation of who is going to be part of the advisory board that you're going to be electing, and also what's going to be, what are the possible first initial events that the advisory board will hold in this year in the MAF 2020. So, and then we. Make the video clip slower.
Yeah, I can actually move it away. I just noticed that.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so good. So basically, Klaus said most of what I wanted to say, but it's always, I guess, the older you get, repetition is a good thing. So the role of the advisory board, what is it? What will we want to do? Well, that's what they'll decide when they're elected. So that's kind of, we're still trying to figure out what it is we want to do. But sort of the ideas right now, we want to initiate the community, initiate the discussions, define the direction and agenda of the FRET community. So to do things like organizing workshops, conferences, discussing new challenges, what are the, where are the areas where we're having difficulties, where we can move things forward, what do we see as important goals for FRET, develop recommendations of how one can do the data, I guess, data analysis, for example. I would stress what we want to do is maybe set guidelines or recommendations. We're not going to dictate. We're not electing a US president, we're acting in a democratic way. I'm sorry, this is online. Okay, anyway. You're going to establish organizational structures of the community, how to web pages and how to get things out, discuss and ratify the bylaws. I think an important aspect of the community is, the goal is we really like to have the community to be self-organizing, to organize from the bottom up, kind of like DNA origami. You just mix everybody together and you shake around and it happens. But the advisory board is sort of there to help guide and direct. If you study the physics of dynamics of groups, you need some people to help move things forward quickly. Otherwise, people talk and nothing happens. And I think that's a little bit of what the advisory board needs to do. For how long will the advisory board be elected? I don't think we know yet. So be careful who you vote for. But no, I think the idea is at least 1 year, and I think then it will be discussed whether we want to do this biannually or what. And so right now it's very open. So we're open for input and trying to decide. So there's these 4 categories. So just to review again, there's the senior researchers. These are the old guys. The girls are still young. Then we have the young investigators. These are the up and coming rising stars, tenured track, but non-tenured people. Then we have the early stages researchers. So these are your postdocs where you get fresh blood going into it. And then there's the industry or faculty editors. I mean, these are the important people that we couldn't put in the other categories. So good. So who can be nominated, right? Well, any member of the FRET community can be nominated. You can nominate yourself or you can nominate somebody else, which means, okay, so how can you become a member of the FRET community? Well, you just need to register. So you register. If you're registered, you can nominate yourself or somebody else. Nominations are open until February 28th. I didn't get a time, but sort of midnight, or no, 11 o'clock European daylight. Central European time. So nominate your friends or yourself. Elections will be performed online and run between March 9th, 11 p.m. Central European time to March 30th at 11 p.m. Central European time. Or if we use Greenwich Mean Wich time at 10 p.m. or European Daylight Savings Time, I think around Daylight Savings Time would be 7 p.m. Or 5 p.m. or here on the West Coast. Anyway, so you can do the calculation, but I'm trying not to be biased on which time zone. You vote within your category, so you saw the information that Klaus talked about you vote in your group. Depending on which group you get a number of votes that you can cast, and you can cast 1 or 2 votes per candidate up to all the votes that you have. And of course, there's a website which has all of the details, and so if we can just briefly go there. So are we online here?
Yes, we are online.
So where's the...
Yeah, this I didn't prepare.
Go to the homepage.
I hope I can.
The election page.
The candidates.
The people that have already been nominated or have already registered. Okay. it's not such a big deal. In fact, I mean, I have the page open on my computer, but it doesn't. You go to the home page, then there's elections. Once you logged in, you go to elections, and then you get a list of all the candidates, cute little pictures, mission statements, and biographies.
Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Good. Okay, so this brings us to the next topic, which will be future challenges or ongoing challenges, I guess.
Maybe, Don,
Yes?
maybe just one point that we say there was, then you go on with the challenge. There was one point that we might want to ask you whether we should change. So initially we have 2 seats for the early stage candidates. Now I see that there are, I think, 8 or 7 early stage candidates. This includes also PhD students and not only postdocs. And several of them are very active. Without that, Sonja Schmid for the Fret challenge, Thomas and Anders, and many other people as well. And I have the feeling these 2 seats are too little. And whether we should take the opportunity to increase the number of seats. And that is question number 1. And question number 2 is whether we, let's say, anyway, it will be not enough, that I can encourage the early stage researchers, whether they have an own panel where they send experts to the advisory board, so that even though we have election, that you have a rotating system and several people can participate. That means I have a question that at the end, the early stage researcher should stay here and have a discussion on that issue, how they want to organize themselves, and they are all free that all formats are possible. And now the question number 1 was, do we want to increase the number of early stage researchers from 2 to 4, or which number do you think is appropriate? Are there any opinions on that from the early stage researchers, for example, preferentially? No? Then I ask this way, do you think I simply make not a voting, an opinion voting, just let's say, who thinks that 2 seats are enough for the early stage researcher? They might raise their hands. So there's 2. Who thinks that 4 seats are much better? So, oh, that's the majority. Though I ask the next question,
About 3.
The final question. Who thinks that 4 seats are not enough for the early stage? That we should have even more seats? So just for completeness, is anyone for that? No? Then I think it's decided, so we will have 4 seats and we will change that. Okay, then
this is the first year this will be over.
Yes.
So I think it would be fair to say that after the end of the first
Yeah.
year, we can review also these numbers and see what makes a more.
Yes, and especially the people said you have a rotation. If you have to step out for any reason, the next candidate moves in, and the early stage board of the early stage researchers can decide. So there's flexibility if things change. Done.
Just kill everything, the presentation? Okay.
I hope not.
Just thought to use the time to basically show. So this is what the election page looks like. So you can nominate yourself, and then here you have your list of candidates. So the senior researchers, and then we have here the young investigators, and then we have the early stage researchers, and then the industry and other categories.
And more people are announced that they will joined.
Right.
So the list is still growing.
So the list is there. You have a description of their mission, and then you also can look at their biography. So good. So now that I've destroyed that, I come back. So we had talked about previous challenges. The first FRET challenge we had, and I guess there's a discussion of what are some of the questions that one would like to answer in the FRET community. What do we need to convince our colleagues that FRET is an important method? And you know, one of the comments that actually came back with the first FRET paper is, okay, this is nice, but why don't you do it on proteins? So there's a second FRET challenge building on the first one from Hellenkamp et al. So we show that FRET is a quantitative technique. You can get the same answer regardless of where you are in the world. But proteins add additional challenges. So they're very finicky. They're prone to aggregation. They, you know, if you label them, they may be functional. They may not be functional. For specific labeling, you tend to have much more difficulties with proteins, so you often do stochastic labeling, so then you may have different environments of the dyes, depending on where it is. You have then different combinations of colors. And then we have the fact that proteins are often dynamic systems. And so you have a protein jumping between different states. During your measurements, this makes them very challenging. And so Thorben Cordes has started a second challenge, which is the protein challenge. And if you know, maybe potentially, I mean, we're pretty far on it. There's 18 groups, so there's 2 that still want to join. I guess if people that want to join, potentially then close your eyes for the next couple of slides. But so we chose 2 protein systems, one that has protein's dynamics on the second time scale, and one that has dynamics on the sub-millisecond time scale. Just to get an idea, and there was the questions, first of all, what FRET efficiencies do you measure? And secondly, what about, is it a static system, is it dynamic? So the one system you can actually see, we have 3 different mutations. We have it, you know, both systems are with or without ligand, so you can add a substrate, and you can basically see the agreement between the different labs. In all the cases here for the protein 1 is quite good. For protein 2, which is the more dynamic, it's a little bit more challenging. And so we, compared the FRET histograms, we get relatively good agreement. There are some technicalities we're still looking into. And the fact that it's a dynamic system, of course, makes everything a little bit more sensitive. So it depends on what temperature you've measured. You know, the ligand is actually RNA. So depending on whether it's being degraded, you can get also different ratios. So it's sort of a very challenging second system. And then, you know, so we're also going into detecting and quantifying the dynamics. So we're using different ways of actually determining how do you know if it's a static or dynamic protein you're looking at. And so these are some of the questions that we're, you know, this is the results that we're writing up. I was actually working it on the plane, and so it's moving forward. For those that are involved, we should get feedback hopefully within about a month to you for the last, hopefully, final approval. Okay, good. Now, second challenge, I guess, Anders, you'll be talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is not my challenge. I should make that very clear. This is what Sonja Schmid and Markus Goetz have initiated. What Don talked about was about freely diffusing single molecules and how accurately we can measure FRET there. And what Sonja and Markus want to answer is the question of how can we extract kinetics and FRET efficiencies from time series, so immobilized molecules. And the way they approach this, or basically to first summarize this, going from this mess of photon counts into a kinetic scheme with its rates and states attached. And if you look into literature about how to do this, you find a number of tools. Many of them claim to be the best or a significant step forward to how to do it. But the question is now, which tool do I choose? And certainly it's not feasible to test all of them. So on your own, but you can do it together with the community. So that's a good aspect. And so the challenge is hosted on kinsoftchallenge.com. And we did the first round. I say we because I participated, not because I organized again. There are 3 training data sets, synthetic, and 6 challenge data sets available. 3 of the challenge data sets are also synthetic, so we know the ground truths by definition, and we also added 3 experimental data sets provided by the Schlierf lab, and 13 participating labs, and really diverse approaches also. So it's not only hidden Markov models, we tried around correlation analysis and just step finding approaches. So basically really broad approach to solve this issue. And these are initial results that Sonja shared here now. This was for a simple 2-state system, and ground truth indicated here, and the results from the different participants also. So already you see some interesting results, both in accuracy and precision of the different methods. And I don't want to drag this out, but so this is just a list of everybody who participated. And yeah, Sonja says sorry she couldn't make it, but she'll be around hopefully next time. Okay. And then we move on to
the next point. I think Uno, I think will be both on the list. Correct? Yes. Jelle, you are first. Summary of mission statements. Why are we doing this?
You want to just... Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe it's too small. So I took the challenge to try to make a brief summary of the mission statements. I anonymized them, of course. So I divided it up into what the FRET community should work on for the community itself, for the sake of the community. So establishing a hub, a forum for open discussions, meeting each other on a regular basis, being an open, there are no stupid questions place, and maybe because of Anders' statements, it might be clear from who this actually came, but okay. Maintaining friendliness, collegiality, respect, and fun. So, by the way, many of these points are actually raised by different people in the list of nominees. Multiple. Advertising and fortifying the community. And then for the scientific community at large, so not only FRET scientists, but basically everybody, identifying and representing the others' interests, and the others then not the non-experts, interesting the others for FRET, encouraging them, showing that FRET is fun, providing advice and opinions, tips and tricks, connecting the right people, in lowering the barriers, simplifying FRET for others, promoting understanding, building bridges between disciplines, networking with other disciplines, creating oversight for the possibilities of FRET, communicating about FRET, creating opportunities for young and starting scientists. So these are all mission statements. How these will be operationalized, that's actually the goal, I mean, the role of the advisory board to actually figure out how we are going to do that. Then for the sake of FRET measurements, analysis, and simulations, advancing the development and application of FRET tools, both on the hardware side, the software side, the probe side, and also the biology. Establishing easy standards, recommended practices, and validations. Establishing smart documentation, protocols, repositories. Stopping to rediscover hot water, because now in many places in the world by different labs, similar things are being investigated. Maybe if you have a community, then we can stop doing it, stop reinventing the wheel. Establishing a troubleshooting forum, promoting open source, sharing resources, community-driven developments and testing, tackling larger problems, such as the ones that Anders and Donald just discussed, incorporate FRET in integrative studies, identify what makes FRET unique and focus on that, and organizing global challenges. And then finally, what the FRET community should focus on specifically regarding industry, maintaining close and good contacts between industry and academics in terms of FRET, helping in creating generalized protocols and standards, rhyme open source with commercial interests, helping in networking between disciplines, and then helping and learning from each other's perspectives. That's it. quite a long list. So there's a daunting task waiting for the advisory board.
So I think then Hugo and I come to the last point. The last point will be that we will have again a satellite workshop, at least one day. We can have 1.5 days, and it will be associated with the BPS2020 conference this year in Gothenburg, Sweden. And it will be in the, let's say, tradition of Düsseldorf. The University of Gothenburg sponsors the room. So there will be no fees, again, no registration fees. It's a purely scientific meeting. There will be activities to explore Gothenburg city in the evening. There will be some social activities supported by sponsors I contacted, and this will be made possible as well. And now I wanted to discuss with you, what do we want to do there, except let's say, except exploring the city. So what exploring science? So which kinds of science? What do we want to do? What are your wishes? And for that, maybe we had some ideas and we wanted to have some indications what could be good.
So from the previous experience of this past MAF 2019, what we did was short overview from very basic theory, fret, instrumentation, and applications perspective. We had about, if I have the numbers here correctly, about 40 trainees. So it was largely represented by trainees that either were beginners or were intermediate users of fret. And that's why we decided that. So in this occasion, we want to hear more from your own opinions. What shall we be the focus of that satellite? So we really open the floor for suggestions on what shall we focus on the, organizing the satellite workshop. Don't be shy. The question is suggestions for the content of the satellite workshop.
One thing that I saw in the last map was if you can get a group of students with 1 or 2 experts, we had small meetings to talk about other things, but the 2 experts, the students wanted to ask questions about their experiments, like which dyes you use, what about this? So having like meet the experts, where you got up in small groups with different experts in different rooms, and then people can ask questions about their experiments with people who know something. So I think that would be nice as a small organization to the event of the event.
What is the split between the training aspect of this and the research aspect?
That's a great question. So in the past MAF 2019, we did, I guess it was, we divided mostly on the fret community organization aspect and the training. So we had a few guest speakers on the research, but that was really the minority part of that. But we can change this for the Göttingen depending on what the community suggests. So
one stream, basically, for both beginners, intermediate, and advanced.
So we have 2 rooms. We have 2 rooms. Let's say we will have a lecture hall with 90 seats and another room with 60 seats. So in principle, it's exactly, therefore we can ask Frank, so to speak, from how many of you would be very interested in hands-on training? That we really say, here are data, we want to do Alex, we want to do hidden Markov modeling, any things like that, because for Düsseldorf I had indeed a questionnaire. So therefore we can do that again. but just to get an impression here, what is for the dissemination aspect, would you like to use software where you really say, this is my data, and we analyze them? Who is interested in that? Just might raise the hand. So, okay, application of, maybe even, okay, who is interested in, let's say, hearing latest science threat related applitions and theory for threat analysis? Okay, that's obvious, okay. And what did I, because last time we had in Düsseldorf, we had 3 courses in parallel. Fundamentals for beginners, medium, let's say advanced topic, and high-end, very specialized topics of modeling or dye models, or what are the pitfalls in trace analysis. So how many, let's say, shall we again offer, let's say, less lectures and hands-on for beginners? Or are you already advanced, so that we should keep that level?
I think if you want to create a community where we grow with people who come and get training, you need to provide a training for people who like to get the grips with the fundamentals. So if you don't have this, then it becomes a plan for people who are already there. So you know, we want to be open.
Okay.
It's a formal way also to provide education, because in our institutions they're not going to have such an extensive training thread. So incoming students will benefit greatly from it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's great to organize this kind of meeting. I really appreciate that. What is missing is that there are a number of training workshops going on internationally. That should be included to get attraction to your website. So that what he is asking is that there are a number of training, our theory class is going on. We should list so that people wanted to get trained, they get trained.
Yeah. Okay, here you see the announcement. The MAF conference ends at 9th September, early afternoon, and we simply continue, and our meeting will end most likely 10th late afternoon. So we have to look when the flights go off, and so one day more, one extra day, and you don't have to register for MAF. You can. It would be attractive, but this is an independent activity, and as I said, without any fees. They're so cheap as possible for you.
So something not might get is the correct determination of correction process, depending on the data set. That you have it is dynamic or non-dynamic, because I think there's a lot of things you can do wrong.
Threat correction factors. Yes, that's a secret. Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Maybe you could set up a page on the fret.community website where people could list their questions in preparation for the workshop. Like the questions just.
Okay. Wish list. So
yes.
Suggestion and wish list. Okay. And we try to organize such that we have also representatives of the different software packages. Some of them will be there. So, and I think we will open the registration for this workshop also very soon. MAF has opened. Now their web page is running. We will do that also for ours. And I know that several people will be there. Also, it was initiated with at the PicoQuant meeting last year. Shimon Weiss said he will come, for example, and many others are as well there. Okay.
So do you plan to advertise with the people who will register at MAF? So if you want to have a beginner in threat coming to the workshop, maybe you should try to attract these people who go to MAF without knowing about our community.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you can have the list.
Yeah, we are already on their webpage announced, but I will ask them to get a visible place. That was agreed from the beginning, and they did this. Markus Wilhelmsson was very supportive because he had to negotiate a lot that we got our room, and he made it possible. And especially, do you think that we have sometimes parallel sessions? Because I had to promise him to let him know what we decide, whether he frees the room or not. And you would say I should have keep both rooms. Yes? Okay.
So any last suggestion? And now we are getting to the end of the meeting. Yeah.
Question, just to make this very useful for the members of the community. I mean, that the fact that the community exists provides an opportunity to survey people for the biggest challenges they have when they develop or use methodologies or when they analyze the data. I mean, isn't this a scope, or maybe just already done, to have a survey that identifies what are the main sticking points when you do threat experiments, and also to identify what are the great challenges for the field, and then we put the emphasis on addressing what really matters for the community. So we'll know this in a quantitative way if you have members, we've got about hundreds of members.
Yeah.
Then we put the energy where will make the most difference.
Okay, that's a great suggestion. We can set up then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now with the website really working full speed, then we can definitely do that.
And concerning the website, I don't see you mention adding maybe a job listing section.
Job listing, okay, good. So then we come to the last point, because I had a discussion this morning with the leaders of the chair and chair-elect of the Fluorescence subgroup. And how do you want to continue together? And so we discussed from the beginning that the fret community is a part of the Fluorescence subgroup. And all my discussion showed that at least the people to whom I spoke, that they say they would like to, that this stays like this, that we don't compete out the fluorescence and have another subgroup. And I wanted to ask you at the end whether we want to do that like this, so that we are indeed only like we do, let's say, organizational things, and that we on the other hand say, okay, the fret community is present in the fluorescence subgroup, and therefore we were sometimes happy to see our topics visible there, so that we have a voice besides the other fluorescence technique, that there's some lobbying for fret. And on the other hand, there is one complication. Since the fluorescence subgroup meetings, like all other subgroup meetings, are scientifically centered, business meetings are not as long as ours, we don't fit in. Because the society has decided that there is no flexible length of the meetings, they are squeezed in either in the morning or in the afternoon, in the fixed lunch break. So how this extra hour that we have in the morning is in parallel to other sessions. And some colleagues told me they cannot come. And now we thought, okay, how to solve that problem? There are two options. Either we go in parallel and do it like this. Option two is we go into the lunch break, the holy lunch break. That means this would be usually, I think, 12:30 to 1:30. Then at least normally all people should have time to attend, or we say we leave the subgroup then Saturday and we go for Sunday and ask the president of the Biophysical Society to check out whether there is a date, a time and a room where we could meet. What is most important, we want to make this regularly. even though we were earlier this time and contacting, it was, since we are not on the list of various people, we had difficulties to make this possible. And only David Piston at the very end, whoosh, made it possible. So we are stuck in this bureaucracy here. And I thought, whatever that we decide, we want to meet regular here and want to have a regular date and become a regular part of the program. That so to, I'll call it, automatically they have us on their list, that we have less difficulties and can announce earlier when our meeting will be. Therefore, I ask now the question, when? Let's say, like now, on Saturday, lunch break, or another day as close as possible, agreed in with the president and the committee. So who is for meeting as we have it now? Just raise the hand. Oh, that's already, who is in a meeting in the lunch break? A little bit less.
It was confusing.
Okay, then I say okay.
I would say the same day, lunch break, 12:30 to 1:30, and people come.
Okay, we can do it like this. We can. We ask, okay, in a way, the people can actually, why not, saying vote several times. As long as you say this is a good date, then raise the hand, and that's enough. You can vote several. They are not. You can raise several times. So we start again. 10, let's say 11 to 12, like today. Who's for that? Okay, that's 50%. Who is for 12:30 to 1:30 in the lunch break? This is, yeah, the same amount, I would approximately say. And who is, let's say, for let's say Sunday at the, maybe between the, before the poster session, I have to ask what they allow us. Someone on Sunday. Who is for that? No one. No one is for Sunday. So that's a clear message to the officials here. Yes.
Klaus, once we have the scientific advisory board, what's the purpose of this meeting every year?
Let's say that I think, at least I was believing that the advisory board will also listen and report. Yes, so that there will be a discussion forum still useful. And I thought this is also depends on you when we really say there's not so much business, that there could be also some presentation if we really want that. But officially, it's the business meeting. That's what we promised, so to speak. Yeah, it's also ambivalent. Let's say community and not a part of the fluorescence subgroup. This is now the current status. And I know that there's a general problem in a way that the people use FRET, but they study systems. And we lose the FRET people to the systems in a way that I recognize a lot. And that's the fate of the technique-driven systems. But I really want to say, this is not a single molecule FRET community. It's a FRET community, all aspects of FRET. That can be imaging, super resolution FRET microscopy, ensemble FRET, everything around FRET should be covered, and maybe we do more when we see that time is right. Okay. Are then yes?
This sounds to me very different topics. I want to choose it. Single molecule FRET and antimal FRET, of course, they're the same thing. Technology is the question.
I think, at least for us, for my group, the differences in the technique are minor. It's just the amount of photons, what they allow you to do with them. And And in imaging, clearly, you have a different detector types in it. You can have different detector types. And that's actually the cross-fertilization I would like to have. And also not only the techniques, but also the dyes, the analysis techniques. So it's a very broad view, all aspects around fret and systems at the end as well. So with that, I think
that men understand that the person's group might be sitting right. You're taking over a lot of the persons, right? You destroy some ensemble and
yes.
resolution and so forth. That's a big part of their business, right?
And we are not talking about general quenching. We are not talking anisotropic polarization, but there are certainly aspects of it. We are clear. But for example, today's today's program, for example, from the fluorescence subgroup, has lots of different aspects of fluorescence that are utilized there. So there's, I think, enough space. And I think we can learn from each other and not to be tunnel views. So are there final comments? Because then our time is over, unless we have final remarks from you. No? Then I hope that I see many of you from 9th to 10th September in Gothenburg. And in case you would come and there are financial problems to get there, or you need financial support or any other kind of help, please contact me in person and I will try to find out whether support can be provided or things so that you can attend. Then thank you for coming, and I wish you an excited Biophysical Society Meeting.
So. Hat das alles geklappt? Also ich weiß nicht, ob das mit dem Mikrofon und so, ne?